2023 is coming to a close, and these past few months have been some of the busiest I've had in my life. It has been one thing after another, both blessings and challenges. This fall I went back to my hometown in northern Minnesota. My sister was getting married, and it was the last opportunity to say goodbye to my grandma. We knew it would happen within the year, we just didn't know when. I had grand plans of vlogging my trip home. I was going to take you to my favorite places, introduce you to plant allies from my childhood, and even investigate some local legends. But time just got away from me. Next time I'm home, I will make a proper hometown vlog, but I hope you enjoy this abridged version. Autumn is my favorite time to go home. Minnesota is a very underrated state. I feel like most people don't even know what it looks like, and I wanted to share that with you. Known as the land of 10,000 lakes, Minnesota is known for many bodies of water. I swear you cannot drive more than 10 minutes without seeing another consecutive lake. They are everywhere. And between them, it's wetlands, marshy, bog-like areas connecting larger bodies of water. But they are not dry land. The water table is right there, so if you walk into them, you will sink. Minnesota doesn't have mountains, but the skyline is washed in iron ore. They call this area of the state the Iron Range, named after the many mineral deposits you will find here. It creates a really beautiful variety in the landscape. Minnesota almost looks splatter painted to me. Another very notable feature of this area is Lake Superior, the largest of the Great Lakes. Every time I see it, it takes my breath away. It's almost impossible to believe that this is a lake. Walking along the North Shore always has me feeling like an old-timey lighthouse keeper. The ambiance it creates is perfect for writing the next great horror novel. There's just something in the air. I've always found Lake Superior to be quite unnerving. She is just so unforgiving, and she never gives up her dead. Lake Superior is the site of many shipwrecks, over 550, nearly all of which lay undisturbed at the bottom of the lake, passengers included, which is where the saying comes from, she never gives up her dead. When a ship goes down on Lake Superior, that is considered its final resting place, and it is not to be touched. You see, Lake Superior is too cold for bodies to decompose naturally. So they don't float to the surface. They stay where they are, suspended in time. Each time I walk her shores, I think of them, their families, and how their lives were cut short. I always leave them an offering and tell their stories so their legacies may live on. May you rest easy, sailors. Being home felt like a precursor to my upcoming move to the Pacific Northwest. This is something I've talked about for a long time, and it is finally here. My husband graduates at the beginning of December, and then we move out of Miami and in with his parents in northern Florida for a few months while we find a job and a place to live in Oregon. Oregon may be surprising to some of you, as it was almost Washington. I went back and forth between the two states for years, but finally settled on Oregon. Preparation for the move has taken up a lot of the end of this year. Beyond planning to move and my trip home, I hosted my first astrological witchcraft retreat over Samhain. The vlog for that is already up, and it is really special, so make sure to give it a watch if you haven't. Between going home and going on my retreat, my grandma died. She passed a few days after I returned from Minnesota, but while I was up there, I did get to have a very special goodbye with her. These next clips were taken directly after she passed. They are documentations of my grief. I almost scrapped this footage because I didn't know if anyone would want to watch it, but it helped me process things and feel less alone. I hope it does the same for you. I'm just sat here going through some letters and photos. So I thought I would turn on the camera and do that with you. Grieving is really difficult, and I don't know how much I want to share on camera, but one of my core beliefs surrounding death is that it is our responsibility as the living to carry those that we have lost with us. And this is the beginning of that for me with my grandma. These letters and photos are things that I have saved throughout my life. As you might gather, I'm a very sentimental person, so if someone writes me a letter or I just stumble upon some family photos, I typically keep them, and they're not very organized. I resort to putting them in plastic baggies, and one day I will scrapbook. My grandmother did a lot of scrapbooking. But I am going to start by just going through and finding things of hers that she has written me or photos that I have of her. The only thing I have organized is I have an ancestor-specific photo album of people that I have lost. And at this point, I have lost 2 grandparents, now 3. At this point, I have lost 3 grandparents. Okay. Before my grandma passed away, I lost 2 grandpas. I have 3 sets of grandparents because of a divorce in my family. You'll have to let me know how many grandparents you had or have. But I had 3 sets, and now I have 2 grandmothers left and 1 grandpa. So now I'm going to find the pictures of my grandma that just passed and add them into the photos that I have of my grandfathers that did pass already. And that group of photos is what I use to create my ancestor altars. So she will no longer be in here. She will be in a separate collection that I will use to honor her. I've already gone through quite a bit of things. I did find one postcard that I'm pretty sure belongs to her, but I cannot read it. My grandma had really interesting handwriting. Beautiful, but like definitely difficult to read. Dear Hannah, Grandma wishes you were here, ? On the beach. I miss you. I know you've been a good girl. When we get home, we will have a tea party. 2004. A postcard from her trip to the Gulf Coast. My grandma is originally from Florida, and in a roundabout way, it is how I eventually ended up in Florida. That's a story for a different day. But my grandmother was born and raised in northern Florida and eventually made her way to Minnesota, where my family started. Let's see what else we can find. I always love taking photos. Something about encapsulating moments forever. Oh my goodness, how many did I take here? These have no relation to my grandma, but these are photos from when Colt and I started dating. This is my now husband. When we were like 18 years old. We were high school sweethearts. Take more photos. If you learn anything from this video, you will never regret taking photos. Another one from Grandma. Whoop, lost Grandpa down there. Okay. This is so her. This is exactly what I was looking for. July 12th, 2010. July 12th is the day that my book came out. Not in 2010, but in 2023. That's kind of cool to see that parallel. My darling Hannah, I know you are having a great time at camp as you... What? I went to camp every year, Christian church camp, actually, and later I was a camp counselor there. My story of deconstruction is a long one, but I loved camp, and I got a scholarship each year from my church to go, which is why I went back and I was a camp counselor when I was 18. Even though at that time I was not Christian, I was pretty agnostic, but I left that summer as a pagan witch. And if you want to know more about that story, I do have my spiritual journey from the Christian church to paganism, but anyway. I know you are having a great time at camp, as you had such a good time last year. Okay. Do not put a snake on anyone's head. Or... Do not put a snake on anyone's head. No frogs down their shirts. Don't put the hand of sleeping people in cold water. I think it's hot water. It'll make them wet their pants. Is that true? Apparently I was up to no good as a child. My grandma was like, do not do this, do not do that, you know, need to keep me on my best behavior. I think the week will be... You are a good girl. What? Your grandma loves you very much. Enjoy the jerky. My grandma sent me meat in this letter. Okay. My Papa Denny, her husband, hunted, and they always made deer jerky, venison jerky, and it was delicious. But I remember she sent me a stick of venison jerky, which is just like a piece of meat. Like, it wasn't wrapped. It was just in this letter. This beautiful flower letter just had a mystery meat stick in it. And I don't even think at that time I could read her saying, enjoy the jerky. And I was just like, what is this? Mystery meat from my grandma. Should I eat meat out of a letter? I did. I think I did. It was very good. But this is perfect. Going right on the ancestor altar. And I'll probably use a piece of beef jerky as an offering then later. She'd love that. Do not put a snake on anyone's head. No frogs down their shirts. Don't put the hand of sleeping people in cold water. Words to live by. I don't have a lot of old photos of my grandma. Hopefully I can get some. We will be in the process of going through her belongings, the family. And I would love to get some old photos of her, because I've got old photos of my other grandparents. Like, this is my grandpa, Kermit. Like the frog. He passed a couple years ago. They were married. That's the divorce. I don't think they would mind me telling you. They got married in the 50s and they had 3 daughters, which is my mom and her sisters. Is this grandma? We got another one! Okay. This one has a palm tree on it. I just have to tell you, okay. Later on in my grandma's life, she owned a condo in Florida. Like, they lived in Minnesota, and then for the winters, they were snowbirds, so they would come down to Florida. And she had a condo with, like, old Florida aesthetic, which if you haven't seen it, it is like this mixed with pastels and, like, nautical decor. I'll put some photos on the screen if I can find some of it, but she had a very nice aesthetic going. She was always a very stylish woman, and I need to look at her birth chart. I don't know if I could get that. That's another thing I need to do, because I don't have my grandma's birth chart at this time, but I know she has a hell of a lot of Libra placements. Hannah, I sure hope you are having a good time at camp. Another camp letter. I suggest you swim and play all day. Good advice. I hope the weather is great all week for you, but rainy days are great for reading. That's so sweet. I hope you can read Grandma's writing. Even she knew. Oh my gosh. I hope you can read Grandma's writing, as I am always in a hurry. She had places to be. Have fun, be good. I love you very much, Grandma Mary. She said I have places to be. I hope you can read this. I'm actually too busy to write you. The sass. The sass. Grams. I also have Colton's photos in here because I've started collecting them from his family. Like, we'll go to his grandparents and I'll be like, do you have any baby photos of him? This has got to be one of my personal faves. Styling. This is a picture of me. Probably one of the cutest photos ever. I used to look exactly like Michelle off of Full House. This is my other grandma. I just have to show you this picture because she's badass. My grandma lived in Alaska for a long time. And this is her fishing for salmon, question mark. Look at this woman and tell me that she's not the coolest person you've ever seen. Okay, I found my grandma. Okay, we found one. Here she is, Grandma Mary. This is my grandma. She is wearing a bear necklace. This is very important. My grandmother wore this necklace every single day. This bear's name is Clarabelle. My Papa Denny did a lot of hunting. It's where the beef jerky comes from. And he had a hunting shack. And at this hunting shack, she made up stories about Clarabelle the bear that lived there. And she would like help my grandpa and help the woodland creatures. And it is what started my relationship with the bear spirit. I work a lot with the bear spirit within my practice. There's a lot of bears in Minnesota, and she always told me stories about this bear, Clarabelle, and it was on her necklace, and I just remember laying on her lap, and she'd be telling me stories about Clarabelle, and her necklace would be like dangling in my face, and all of us grandkids would play with it with our fingers, and just, we're so enamored by her storytelling. There you go. That's my Grandma Mary, and this is my cousin, Jared, and then that little cutie patootie, that is me. It looks like I just got done eating a cherry pie or something. And I have absolutely no idea whose head that is. She had the same haircut for many, many years. It was like a triangle. And she's blonde in this. Sometimes it leaned a little bit more red. But she had super thick hair, and it always was like shoulder length, and it just kind of came into this perfect like bob. Later today, I'm actually going to be making my grandmother in The Sims with my stream community, and I know that kind of sounds silly, but I think it'll be a really great way that I can reminisce about her and celebrate her life and tell you guys about her. I don't mind talking about her. She was wonderful, and I'm so glad for the time that we had together. She was quite a character. So, I'm going to pull out more photos. I'm going to track down more photos of my grandma. I'm going to work on my altar, and I'm going to make her in The Sims and all of her fun outfits, because this one's very understated. Like she's just in like white here, but my grandma would wear like bright red lipstick to everything, red heels, cheetah print leggings. She was almost Dolly Parton-esque in the way that she dressed. Really fantastical sparkles, glam, glitz, the fashion, you know? That was her. That was her. It has been a couple days since we last talked, and I am farther into my grief process. Things like her funeral are starting to get planned. She is actually going to have 2 of them, one in Minnesota, where half of our family is, and one in Florida, where the rest of us are. And her urn is actually going to be buried in Florida at the cemetery that all of her family has been buried at. Her mom is there, whose name was Nell, but we called Big Mama. She died before I was born, but that is ultimately who I am named after. Big Mama, or Nell, pulled a total Lorelai Gilmore and named her daughter Mary Nell, my grandmother, after her, and then 2 generations later, I got the name, which is pretty cool. Right now, my family up north is going through all of my grandma's belongings, which is always strange. I'm not sure if you've ever done that, go through someone's belongings after they pass, but really what you are left with is somebody's entire life in items, and it's an odd feeling and just very sentimental. And it's even stranger for her because it is what she did her entire life. She was a real estate agent, and she primarily did estate sales where she would sell the home of the recently deceased and all of their items. I went to a lot of these sales with her growing up, and it is where I developed this relationship with what happens to people's items after they pass, and honestly, death itself. It was really interesting and a fundamental part of growing up and my experience that I had with her. And I actually had quite a few paranormal experiences at these estate sales, or with the items that I got from them. Like, several times it felt like the person who owned the item before I had it was still around. And soon I will have that experience again with her items, and I don't really know what to make of it, though I'm excited to have things to remember her by. One thing that I asked for was jewelry, and I know I already told the story about the bear necklace, but she had so much jewelry, a closet full. Most of it wasn't valuable, which of course is not why I want it anyway, but it was just her thing. And I'd like to think it is probably where I get it as well. She was always collecting things, like a dragon. Relatable. And I thought it was so luxurious. I didn't realize that it was costume jewelry, and so growing up, I thought my grandma was just constantly dripping in diamonds and rubies and emeralds. The visions that we create as children. So I'd like to have some of that to remember her. In fact, I would really like to make a shadow box. I think that's the name of it. I'll put some pictures on the screen, but basically it is a framed photo with a little bit of space in it so you can put physical objects inside. And I would like to make one with her jewelry and the letters that she sent me. Besides the physical stuff that she left, I have so many digital things that I have been going through. It is cases like these that I am so grateful that I record everything. One of which is a TikTok that I recorded several years ago when I went up to visit her, and let's just watch together. It's kind of weird to play this for you because I get kind of cringed out playing my videos for anyone, but I feel like we can make an exception here. Hey everyone, in my last post I mentioned that I would be going back to my hometown for a few weeks to spend some time with my grandma, who unfortunately is very sick. We have been having so much fun together, and I wanted to take you along with me and show you just how magical her house is. Now, she wouldn't consider herself a witch, but I can definitely see where I get it because my grandma lives like a little Studio Ghibli character. Everywhere you look, I see things that just remind me of myself in my witchy ways, so I thought I would share with you some of the cute things I found. She goes out and goes foraging for mushrooms, rocks, stones, crystals. There's a hazelnut, some fallen leaves, plants, more mushrooms, and whatever is in here could be a spell jar. I don't know, Grandma, what are you up to? There are wind chimes everywhere, and aside from having pets, wild animals just surround the house, so I thought I would share. It's so cute. She was basically Snow White. My grandma and I had a lot in common, despite our differences in religion. She was incredibly Christian, and her faith was very important to her. I never told her about my witchy stuff, and that is okay. Though, when I contact her for Samhain, she's gonna have quite the surprise. Though in my experience, when people pass, even if they wouldn't have been supportive of witchcraft in life, in death it doesn't really matter. I venerate both of my grandpas who would not have been cool with witchy stuff, who weren't cool with witchy stuff on this physical plane, though in death are a lot more accepting. At least I have never had a bad feeling about it or from them. I like to think that when people die, all is revealed and stuff like this doesn't matter anymore. And I just thought I'd share that because I know a lot of people have questions about venerating grandparents or relatives that they have lost who were not supportive of witchy stuff in this life. I'm getting excited to honor her life and add her to my ancestor altar this year, and this is the beginning of preparing for that. I want to show you one more way that I am beginning to honor her, and funnily enough, it relates to the visions we create as children. Until I was about 10 years old, I thought my grandma had naturally occurring bright red lips. She was a lady who always had her face on because you just never know who may show up at your house. Because she always wore red lipstick in life, now that she's an ancestor, I'll be sure to send plenty to the other side. She taught me many lessons, mostly revolving around kindness. I am so lucky to be her granddaughter. Thank you for watching this video, for letting me be vulnerable and to share her life with you. This has been an update for what's going on in my life. It's been an intense period, one of transformation and reflecting on mortality. But I guess that is what Scorpio season is all about. I hope that all of you watching have been faring well. Until next time.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Hannah. Your grandma loves you. Have a wonderful day, darling. I've got a little horse here this morning. I'll be thinking about you all day long today. Hope you have a happy, happy day. Love you much, darling. Bye-bye.